I realized I'd made a terrible mistake the moment the airlock sealed behind me, and 6 pairs of luminescent eyes turned to stare at me in the dim corridor. But by then it was already too late. The ship was moving, I was trapped. And the tall woman with silver skin and markings that glowed like neon stepped forward asking in perfect English, "How did a human male get past our shields?" Good question, I thought, because 30 seconds ago I'd been running to catch my transport off Mars colony, and now I was apparently aboard an alien vessel surrounded by women who looked simultaneously beautiful and terrifying. And the way they were looking at me like I was either a problem to solve or a specimen to study made my survival instincts scream. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," I said, hands raised in what I hoped was a universal gesture of peace. I was supposed to board the cargo freighter Destiny's Hope, docking Bay 7, and I must have. The silver woman cut me off with a laugh that sounded like wind chimes. "You're on the Seraphine, human, a Vael'Shar reconnaissance ship, and there's no cargo freighter in any bay near where you boarded." She moved closer and I caught her scent, something like jasmine and electricity. "The real question is how you got through our cloaking field and genetic locks, because our ship only responds to Vael'Shar females." I had no answer for that because I genuinely had no idea what was happening. I'd just run into what I thought was my ship. The door had opened like it was expecting me, and now I was somewhere very wrong having a very strange conversation. "I'm Jake Morrison," I said, figuring introduction was better than panic. "Structural engineer, heading back to Earth after a 6-month contract, and I swear I have no idea what a cloaking field is or how I got through it. Your door just opened when I approached." The women exchanged glances that seemed to communicate volumes without words, and the silver woman who was clearly the leader studied me with those unsettling luminescent eyes that shifted from blue to violet. "I'm Captain Ciora," she said finally, "and you've created a significant problem, Jake Morrison." She gestured to the others. "This is a scout ship on a classified mission. We're already 3 hours into FTL travel, and turning back would compromise months of preparation." My stomach dropped. "FTL, as in faster than light? As in I'm currently leaving the solar system?" Ciora nodded, her markings pulsing with what I'd learned was amusement. "As in you're coming with us whether you like it or not, at least until we complete our mission and return in approximately 43 Earth days." 43 days. 6 weeks trapped on an alien ship. I opened my mouth to protest, but one of the other women, this one with rose gold skin and hair that literally floated around her head like she was underwater, stepped forward. "Captain, we can't bring a human on our mission. The Accords explicitly forbid." Ciora raised a hand. "The Accords forbid us from intentionally recruiting humans, Veyra, but nothing addresses what to do when one accidentally boards our ship through means we don't understand, and frankly I'm more curious about how he did it than I am worried about protocol violations." That's when I noticed the others were curious too. Not hostile, but genuinely puzzled, like I was a riddle they wanted to solve. "Show me your DNA profile," Ciora said, pulling out a device that looked like a cross between a phone and a medical scanner. "What? Why?" I asked, and she gave me a look that suggested I didn't really have a choice in the matter. "Because our ships are genetically coded to Vael'Shar females. The doors won't open for anyone else, not even our own males. So either you have some Vael'Shar ancestry, which should be genetically impossible, or something very strange is happening." She waved the device and it hummed, projecting a holographic display of what I assumed was my genetic code. The other women crowded around, gasping in unison, and Ciora's markings flashed bright white. "That's impossible," she breathed. What's impossible?" I demanded, and Veyra, the rose gold woman, looked at me with something like wonder. "You have the marker," she said softly. "The resonance marker that only appears in Vael'Shar females. It's what allows us to interface with our technology, to communicate telepathically with each other, to bond with—" She stopped abruptly and Ciora shot her a warning look. "To bond with what?" I pressed, and the captain's expression shifted into something guarded. "It doesn't matter because you're human and it's not possible for you to have this marker. Yet here we are. They gave me quarters, a small cabin that was surprisingly comfortable with a bed that adjusted to my body and walls that displayed calming star fields, and told me to stay put while they figured out what to do with me. I lasted about 2 hours before curiosity and claustrophobia drove me to explore, and that's when I found Veyra in what looked like an observation deck, standing at a massive window watching stars streak past at impossible speeds. "You're supposed to be in your quarters," she said without turning around. And I wondered if she had eyes in the back of her head or if that telepathy thing worked on me too. "I'm supposed to be on a cargo freighter eating recycled protein bars and watching bad movies," I countered, moving to stand beside her. "We're all a little off our expected paths today." She smiled at that, and up close I could see her markings were more intricate than Siora's, delicate patterns that swirled across her temples and down her neck. "Why aren't you afraid?" she asked. "You're trapped on a ship full of aliens traveling to unknown destinations, yet you joke." I thought about it. "I guess I figure fear won't change my situation, and you don't seem particularly interested in hurting me, so I might as well try to understand what's happening." Veyra's expression softened. "The resonance marker," she said quietly. "It's genetic code that allows our species to form deep bonds with compatible partners. When two Vael'Shar with complementary markers meet, they can share thoughts, emotions, even life force." She turned to look at me fully. "It only appears in females because our species doesn't have males. We reproduce through genetic combination with willing partners from other compatible species, always producing Vael'Shar daughters." The implications clicked into place. "So when your captain said I have this marker," Veyra nodded, "it means theoretically you could bond with one of us, which shouldn't be possible because you're male and human and our species has never encountered this in millions of years of existence." She laughed softly. "You're not just an accidental passenger, Jake Morrison. You're a biological impossibility that's causing quite the debate among the crew." I leaned against the window, processing this. "Is that why you can't let me go? Because I'm some kind of scientific anomaly?" Her markings flickered amber. "Sadness, I'd learn. Partially, but also because the ship has accepted you. The door's open for you. The systems respond to your presence. Even the environmental controls adjusted automatically to human comfort levels, and that's never happened with a non-Vael'Shar before." She met my eyes. "Our ship is partially alive. Jake, grown as much as built, and it recognizes you as crew, which means something we don't fully understand is happening." Before I could respond, an alarm blared and Veyra's markings flashed red. "We're under attack," she said, already running toward what I assumed was the bridge. And I followed because staying alone seemed worse than facing whatever was happening. The bridge was chaos with holographic displays showing 3 vessels pursuing us, firing weapons that left trails of plasma across the view screen. "Korvax raiders," Siora snarled from the captain's chair. "They must have detected our cloak disruption when Jake boarded. Veyra, evasive pattern theta. Kessa, return fire. Mira, reroute power from non-essential systems." The ship banked hard and I grabbed a railing watching as the crew worked in perfect synchronization, but even I could see we were outgunned. One of the enemy shots connected and the whole ship shuddered, sparks flying from a console. "Shields at 40%, someone called out and Siora's face was grim. "We can't outrun them and we can't outfight them. Prepare for emergency jump." Veyra shouted back, "Captain, we don't have coordinates. A blind jump could put us in a star or a black hole." Siora opened her mouth to respond, but I found myself speaking instead, words coming from somewhere I didn't understand. "Jump to coordinates 44723 by 89271 by 34.8. There's a nebula there, dense enough to hide in." Everyone turned to stare at me and I stared back equally shocked. "How do you know that?" Siora demanded, and I shook my head. "I don't know, I just knew." She held my gaze for 3 seconds that felt like hours, then made a decision. "Execute his coordinates now." The ship lurched and reality did something nauseating. Then we were surrounded by swirling purple clouds that blocked all sensors. The raiders flew past, unable to detect us, and slowly jumped away. The bridge was silent except for the hum of systems, and then Siora stood up and walked directly to me. "You interfaced with the ship," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "You accessed the navigation database telepathically, something only our most trained navigators can do." She touched my face gently and I felt a tingle of energy. "You're not just compatible with one of us, Jake Morrison. You're compatible with all of us, with our entire way of being." Over the next 3 weeks, I learned what it meant to be part of a Vael'Shar crew. The ship spoke to me in feelings and impressions, showing me where to go and what to do, and I found myself helping with repairs and navigation like I'd been trained for it. The women stopped seeing me as a problem and started treating me like crew, teaching me their language and customs, sharing meals and stories. But it was Veyra I kept returning to. Veyra who'd sit with me in the observation deck while I talked about Earth and she talked about her homeworld. Veyra whose markings glowed warm amber when she laughed at my jokes. "I felt it the moment you came aboard," she admitted one night while we watched a binary star system pass by. "The pull toward you, the resonance recognizing its match, and I've been fighting it because you're supposed to go home. Back to your life, and I can't ask you to give that up." I took her hand, feeling that electric tingle that always happened when we touched. "What if I don't want to go home?" I said quietly. "What if in 3 weeks I found something here I didn't even know I was missing?" Her eyes searched mine, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen her. "The bond is permanent, Jake. If we complete it, we'll be connected for life, sharing thoughts and feelings, aging at the same rate so neither outlives the other, and you'd become part of our crew, our family, our mission." She pulled her hand back. "That's too much to ask based on 3 weeks." "You're right," I said, and saw her markings dim with disappointment before I continued. "It's too much to decide based on 3 weeks of accident and circumstance, but what if we had more time? What if I stayed on the mission, all 43 days, and we saw if this connection is real or just circumstance and biology?" Hope lit her features. "You'd do that? Risk the bond forming naturally over time rather than going home to Earth?" I smiled. "I've spent my whole life on Earth and never felt as much as I've felt in 3 weeks here. I think that's worth exploring, and besides, the ship won't let me leave anyway, right?" She laughed, that beautiful wind chime sound, and her markings blazed gold. "The ship accepted you before we did. It knew what we were too afraid to believe." She stood up, pulling me with her. "Come on, there's something I want to show you." She led me to a chamber I'd never seen, walls covered in what looked like living crystal that pulsed with bioluminescent light. "This is the heart of the ship," she said softly, "where bonds are formed, where crew become family." She turned to face me, taking both my hands. "I'm not asking you to bond now, Jake, but I'm asking if you'll consider it. If you'll stay and let this grow into whatever it's meant to be." I pulled her closer, feeling the resonance humming between us like electricity and magnetism, and something deeper. "I already know what it's meant to be," I said, "but I'll take the time anyway, because some things are worth doing right." The mission took us to 3 different star systems, investigating anomalies and gathering data for the Vael'Shar scientific collective, and with each jump I felt more integrated into the ship and crew. I learned that Siora had lost her last crew to a plague and was rebuilding trust in herself as a leader. That Kessa, the weapons officer, had a dry humor that kept everyone laughing during tense moments. That Mira, the engineer, could coax impossible performance from damaged systems through sheer will. And I learned that Veyra was not just beautiful and kind, but brilliant. A navigator who could plot courses through impossible terrain. A warrior who'd defend her crew without hesitation. And someone who'd been alone for a long time, waiting for a resonance match that should never have existed. "My sisters found their bonds years ago," she told me during week 5, lying on my cabin floor looking at the starfield ceiling. I'd almost given up, thought maybe I was defective or my marker was incompatible with everyone. And then you stumbled onto our ship like the universe's strangest gift. I rolled to face her. "Do you believe in fate?" She considered this. "I believe in quantum probability and genetic compatibility, and a universe so vast that impossible things happen constantly," she said. "But if you're asking, do I think you were meant to find us, meant to find me?" Her markings glowed soft pink. "Then yes, I believe in fate." On day 40, Siora called me to the bridge with unusual formality. "Jake, we're approaching the return window to Sol system," she said carefully. "You've been an exceptional crew member and the ship has bonded with you in ways we've never seen with non-Vael'Shar. But you're still human with a life and family on Earth." She paused. "We need to know your decision. Do you want us to take you home?" I looked around at the crew who'd become my family, at Veyra, whose markings were carefully neutral but whose eyes held desperate hope, at the ship that hummed welcomingly around me. "I spent 28 years on Earth," I said slowly, "building structures, following schedules, dating people who never quite fit, and I was fine, I was functional. But I wasn't alive the way I've been alive here." I took Veyra's hand. "I'm staying if you'll have me, and I'm ready to complete the bond if Veyra is. Because I didn't accidentally board the wrong ship. I finally boarded the right one." Veyra's markings exploded with golden light as she threw her arms around me, and I felt the resonance between us surge. The bond beginning to form naturally from weeks of growing connection. The crew cheered and Siora smiled, her own markings warm amber. "Then welcome officially to the Seraphine crew, Jake Morrison," she said. "I hope you're ready for a life of exploration, danger, and family, because we don't let our crew go easily." That night, Veyra led me back to the crystal chamber, and we stood facing each other in the bioluminescent glow. "The bond will connect us completely," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "You'll feel what I feel, I'll know your thoughts, we'll be two people living as one in some ways, and it can be overwhelming." I cupped her face, her skin warm and humming with energy. "I've been alone my whole life, Veyra, even when I was with other people. The idea of being truly connected to someone, of never being alone again, that's not overwhelming. That's everything I've ever wanted without knowing it." She kissed me then, and it was like a circuit completing, the resonance marker in my DNA activating fully and syncing with hers. And suddenly I could feel her emotions like they were my own. Her love, her joy, her relief, her lingering fear that I'd regret this choice. "I won't," I said aloud to that fear. "I could never regret finding you." Through our new connection, she shared a memory. The moment I'd stumbled aboard 3 weeks ago. How she'd felt the resonance recognize me immediately. How she'd fought against hope because it seemed too impossible to be real. "You were never an accident," she whispered. "The ship called to you through the cloaking field and genetic locks because it knew what we needed even before we did." I held her close, feeling our heartbeats synchronize. "Then I guess the ship is smarter than both of us," I said. And she laughed against my chest, her markings painting us both gold in the crystal chamber. The Seraphine continued its journey through unexplored space with one additional crew member, one human who'd accidentally found his place among the stars. And if anyone on Earth wondered what happened to Jake Morrison, the structural engineer who missed his transport home, well, that was a story they'd never believe anyway. How a wrong turn became a right path, how a mistake became destiny, how boarding the wrong ship led to finding the only place I was ever meant to be, surrounded by alien women who'd become family, and bonded to the one person in the galaxy whose resonance matched mine. Some accidents are really fate wearing a disguise. And I was grateful every day that I'd been too rushed to check my bay number that morning on Mars, because the best things in life come from the moments when we stop following the plan and let the universe guide us somewhere better. Veyra said something similar that first morning, waking up with the bond fully formed, our minds gently intertwined, the ship humming contentedly around us. "You know what the best part is?" she asked, her markings lazy amber in the morning light. "What's that?" I replied, pulling her closer. "You can never accidentally board the wrong ship again," she said with a smirk, "because your ship is wherever I am now." And looking into those luminescent eyes, feeling her emotions twining with mine, I knew she was absolutely right.